Hello, Jacksonites. Welcome to part 3 of the 4-part series listing off my top 100 favorite movies. Let's not even beat around the bush. Let's just jump right back into the list. Because believe it or not, I actually have a double feature for you guys today. Right after this video is over, part 4 of this series will be coming out because I got some spare time and I've been really wanting to finish up this series. So let's just jump right into it. Nope, not beat around the bush. Last time, part 75 through 51. Part 51 was The Fugitive. So now we're getting into number 50 on this list. And we just started with action. Well, not just started. We started action with number 53. But we're going to be getting into a lot more action movies. We're actually going to be sticking with action for a good long while. So, starting off with number 50 being Death Wish 2018, starring Bruce Willis. Now, for anyone who's going to ask, no, I've never seen any of the original Death Wish movies. I think there's 4 or maybe 5 of them. I know they all star Charles Bronson. Matter of fact, I think the first Death Wish was one of the first to kind of really kickstart Charles Bronson's career. No, I think he was a Western actor too. But I think it kicked off another phase of his career. And I believe the last Death Wish movie was one of the very last movies that Charles Bronson did in his career. But I've never seen of them. Honestly, the only one of the original series that I think I would like is probably part 3 because of how over the top and ridiculous it looks. But yeah, Death Wish 2018, I really dig the fuck out of. I did not know that this movie was coming until I saw a trailer for it 2 weeks before it came out. I was kind of excited because it looked like, okay, so I have noted I am a Bruce Willis fan. And I've noticed that the last 10 years or so, Bruce Willis's career has not really been in the shitter, but it's just it seems like Bruce Willis is just kind of being lazy and just coasting off of being in these low budget direct to video action or thriller films. Hell, in 2021, he was in 7 direct to video movies alone. So I don't know if he's just getting bored with being a big Hollywood star or if his attitude and his personality has relegated him to only doing the direct-to-video market, or maybe it's a mix of both. I don't know. But it kind of seemed like Death Wish 2018 was a minor revival in Bruce Willis's career. And I saw this. I saw that it was directed by, what's his name? Eli Roth. That had me a little curious, but also a little apprehensive. So I am aware of Eli Roth. I'm not really a fan of his filmmaking. Well, I've only seen 3 of his movies. I've seen Death Wish 2018. I've seen The Green Inferno. And I have seen probably his most famous movie, which is Cabin Fever. Didn't really care for Green Inferno, and I despised Cabin Fever. The only thing that was good about that film, in my opinion, was the really good gore effects. That's about it. I hated Cabin Fever with a burning passion. So I went into Death Wish 2018 slightly apprehensively. The only reason I really wanted to see it is not even because it was an Eli Roth movie. It's just because it looked like a badass Bruce Willis revenge thriller, which it is. I absolutely dig the fuck out of this movie. I love the movie's cast. Bruce Willis is, of course, great in this movie. We got Elizabeth Shue, Allie from Karate Kid, and the main female character in Hollow Man. She's a great actress. Vincent D'Onofrio as Bruce Willis's brother. He's great. And Dean Norris, I think his name is. Twitchell from Tremors the series. Really good character actor cast. A really good, it's a good revenge thriller. It's a good police procedural movie. It's a good Chicago flick. And above all else, it's got some kick-ass action scenes. And the one thing about Eli Roth that I do like, he likes some over-the-top splatterfest gore, kind of like Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino. And you take that and you inject it into an action movie, you got yourself a kick-ass flick. Death Wish 2018 is a unsung movie, in my opinion. It got reamed completely up the ass by critics and fans alike, just saying it was a terrible, terrible, terrible movie. I went into it kind of expecting to dislike it, and I came out of it very pleasantly surprised. I dug the fuck out of this film. At number 49 is Small Soldiers. God damn, is this such an underrated movie. Even though Small Soldiers does have a fan base, Small Soldiers is absolutely, it's definitely like one of my biggest comfort movies, as my wife has introduced that term to me recently. I've come to realize I got a lot of those myself, and Small Soldiers is one of the biggest ones for me in terms of like a comfort movie. It's something that I can throw on and just like feel better and just have a good time watching. I have a lot of nostalgia with Small Soldiers. I watched it. It wasn't, or yeah, it was. It was part of my bundle of movies that I would watch as a young one, like with The Mask, Star Wars Episode 1, Terminator 2, and Jurassic Park, and so on. Small Soldiers was another one of those movies. Unfortunately, it escaped me for a long time because I rewatched it so many times as a kid. My mom took the VHS tape and threw it in the garbage because she got tired of me watching it. But then she bought it for me a few years later as a Christmas gift, so I guess she got over it. One of Jerry Goldsmith's top 10 best musical scores. And actually, if you listen to a lot of this movie's music, it sounds pretty similar to his score that he would later do for the 1999 Mummy movie. I think I stated that in my review. But the music to this movie is absolutely spectacular. It's got a good cast. Dennis Leary is a good douchebag. He's always a good douchebag. I can't remember this actor's name. He was the Colonel in Godzilla 1998. He plays a good dad in this movie. I always get this kid confused with Eddie Furlong, though it's not him. He does a really good job. Another kind of early role for Kirsten Dunst. She does really good. And of course, Tommy Lee Jones does a great job voicing Chip Hazard, the main villain of the movie. He does a phenomenal job. Small Soldiers is a very, very underrated flick, in my opinion. It should have either gotten a sequel or like an animated spin-off TV series focusing on the Gorgons versus the Commandos. Like that would have been like easy money right there. Would have been such a easy hit, but nothing came out after Small Soldiers. It's just such an underrated movie. It's a shame. Number 48, we have Waterworld. This is another nostalgic film for me regarding me and my father. My dad is actually a pretty big fan of this movie, and he introduced this to me at a fairly young age. And this was one of those movies that I would ask my dad, "Hey, can we watch Waterworld?" And more often than not, he would usually always agree. I think this is one of my dad's favorite movies too. But Waterworld is a severely underrated flick, in my opinion. It's a shame that this film flopped. It cost almost it was like $180 million, and I think it barely made $200 million back. So it was a gigantic flop for Universal. And a lot of people have criticized this film as just being Mad Max, but on the ocean. Sure, that may be true, but I think this film is far superior to any of the Mad Max movies rolled into one. Like, man, is this such an underrated movie. This is also classic late 80s throughout the 90s Kevin Costner when he kind of was a diet badass. Probably his most memorable role for me, at least in my opinion, aside from, I think it was The Bodyguard. Kevin Costner, I think, is a pretty underrated actor. He's got some good stuff. This is probably my favorite Kevin Costner film. I love the music. The action scenes are great. The set designs are great. Yeah, this is just, and Dennis Hopper as the villain in this movie, the Deacon, I think. I haven't seen it in a while. Man, is he funny. He's a very fun, over-the-top villain. Then again, Dennis Hopper is always over the top in any movie that he's in, so he's always fun to watch, even in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I'm the Lord of the Harvest. Bring it on down! And in this movie, he's also pretty over the top and funny. It does look like shit. And it feels like cold shit. Hey, Deacon. Flings his eye out. I am aware that there is so Arrow Video released this movie on Blu-ray not too long ago. I don't believe. And apparently there is a not quite 3 hour long, but there is an extended cut of this movie, which I didn't know until I saw that Arrow Video release set. So pretty soon I'm gonna have to get my hands on that and maybe give it a review. But yeah, Waterworld is one kick-ass fucking movie in my opinion, and very underrated as well. You'll notice too that a lot of my favorite films I also consider to be pretty underrated. At number 47, we have Cliffhanger, starring Sylvester Stallone and being directed by, I believe, Renny Harlin. I've come to realize that Renny Harlin actually is a pretty decent director. He knows how to do action movies and a couple creature features. He would have been a pretty decent director choice for Alien 3 had the current version of Alien 3 decided to not get made, but it did, but whatever. And this isn't, hang on, is this other movie? No, it is not. I'll be damned. So I'm actually going to make a minor alteration to this list that I just remembered. Because I completely forgot about this movie, but I should have put it on here earlier. So at number 47, properly, is Cliffhanger, starring Sylvester Stallone, and The Long Kiss Goodnight, starring Gina Davis. In my opinion, these two movies are Renny Harlin's best work. Cliffhanger, to start off on this, Cliffhanger was introduced to me in a bit of an odd way. It was introduced to me by my dad. We stumbled across it on TV. There was a pretty violent, visceral beatdown between Stallone's character and the black guy in this movie. I can't remember his name. But how he's killed is pretty nasty. Stallone grabs him by the balls and lifts him up in the air and impales him on a giant stalactite in a cave, and then just tosses him to the ground. So I was like, damn. And I knew that my stepdad had this movie on DVD, so that weekend when I got home from school, I immediately ran to his movie shelf and I grabbed Cliffhanger and I watched the whole thing. Talking about that movie, because it absolutely blew me away, my dad later would tell me that he has a hard time watching this movie because he doesn't like the opening scene. Stallone Stallone plays a professional mountain climber, and he has to help his friend who gets stuck on a cliff in a rescue. He's part of the Rocky Mountain Rescue Squad, I think it's called. He unfortunately is partially sort of responsible for the death of his partner's girlfriend. They're on a zip line between two cliffs, and her harness snaps, and Stallone is holding onto her by hand, but she slips out of his hand, falls 5,000 feet to her death. It's a pretty tough scene to watch. And my dad would later tell me that that scene, in his words, is the scariest thing that I've ever seen in any movie that I've ever seen. My dad has a very crippling fear of heights, and I guess that scene does really get to him. I watched him watch that scene. He broke out into a sweat and he started shaking like crazy. Now, it doesn't affect me that badly. I have somewhat of a fear of heights myself. I just don't like to be on a high surface without anything to grab onto. But every time I do watch that scene, it kind of just does leave me speechless because it is a pretty harrowing scene to watch. Outside of that, it's, in my opinion, one of Stallone's most underrated movies. It's got some really good action scenes. It's got a really good cast. Stallone is, of course, great. It's also got Michael Rooker playing a rare good guy role for once. And of course, I've come to appreciate this guy a lot more, mostly because I've been watching the show Dexter. John Lithgow plays a phenomenal villain in this movie. He's such a despicable, gleeful piece of shit. Just a villain that you love to watch because he's so slimy. It's also got some decent gore. It's some good fight scenes too. Overall, it's just it's kind of a unique action movie. It's a rescue movie, but it's also a heist movie and an action movie. Stallone isn't a typical action movie star, but he is still a pretty badass guy in this movie. So yeah, Cliffhanger is a kick-ass flick. And to talk about The Long Kiss Goodnight, Gina Davis's best movie. I know we all know Gina Davis as being married to Jeff Goldblum at one point, or in David Cronenberg's The Fly, or maybe Stuart Little. I most fondly remember Gina Davis for The Long Kiss Goodnight. And this is also my favorite Samuel L. Jackson film as well. I love his character in this movie. He's really funny. He's kind of a scumbag, but he realizes that, so he tries to rectify his past mistakes. And he works really well with Gina Davis, in my opinion. It's also a pretty violent and fucked up and slightly mean-spirited, but just a really entertaining and thrilling action movie. Also great music as well. Yeah, Long Kiss Goodnight is one kick-ass fucking movie, in my opinion. Cliffhanger and Long Kiss Goodnight, some of my favorite action films of all time, and are Rennie Harlin's two best movies, with Deep Blue Sea being a very close third. Number 46, we have Rocky 3. My second favorite Rocky film, but has my favorite boxing scenes of the whole Rocky franchise. This is the most simple Rocky film, aside from Rocky 4. It has my favorite music, my favorite characters, well, aside from Rocky himself. Like, Clubber Lang is my favorite villain, because Mr. T just does such a great job of of playing another like fun, unlikable villain. You just hate the guy, but you love watching him because he's so entertaining. And it's a fun redemption movie. Like Apollo, the character Apollo was never really unlikable beforehand, but it's another example where it's fun watching former enemies become friends. It's heartwarming, and it's also a good another redemption movie for Rocky himself. He suffers a very crippling defeat, but then it's fun to watch him crawl back up to the title and win back his world. It's great. Rocky 3 is the simplest Rocky movie aside from Part 4, but it's a lot of fun. You can just sit down and easily watch this movie in one sitting with no questions asked. Rocky 3 is a lot of fun. At number 45, we have True Lies. Shawnee boy, True Lies was originally a lot higher on my list, but it has gone down a little bit, only because I've come to realize that this is probably the most tame R-rated film I've ever seen in my life. Like, even tamer than Terminator 2. Um, yeah, even tamer than Terminator 2. But still, outside of that, it's got a phenomenal music score, of course, by Brad Fiedel. One of Arnold Schwarzenegger's best acting wise performances too, but just as a badass character, of course, he's great. Jamie Lee Curtis is phenomenal in this movie. She's badass, but she's also really funny in both when she's acting like a fish out of water, an awkward, slightly neglected housewife, but also as a damsel in distress too. The most famous scene, of course, being when she's trying to be rescued out of the limousine on that bridge. And right as she grabs onto Arnold's hand, she gets lifted out of the limo and she lets out the longest scream that she's ever let loose in her entire career. And the look on her face with her really wide-eyed expression, and she's screaming her lungs out. It is so funny. As a kid, I never realized it was supposed to, well, maybe it's not supposed to be funny, but it is. I never realized it's funny, but as an adult, I watch it and I just die of laughter every time I see that. It's just so funny. Yeah, True Lies it's a shame that this was James Cameron and Arnold's last movie together. But if this had to be, I think they went out on a pretty good one. Not counting Terminator Dark Fate, because James Cameron didn't direct that film. He just produced it. Though surely James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger did reunite on the set of that film, of course. Hang on one second. I do have burp fuel, but I'm saving it for a little later. Because as you might be able to tell, I'm still not completely over my cold. It just refuses to move on. But at least I'm not coughing every 5 minutes. At number 44 is Rocky Balboa. My Now I have two more Stallone movies. Hang on. Yeah. I have two more Stallone movies that I enjoy more than Rocky Balboa. But Rocky Balboa, in my opinion, honestly, I think is Stallone's just overall best movie. It's his best directing job. I know he directed Rambo 4, more on that later, minor spoilers, but I think this is his best directing job. This has the heart and spirit of the original Rocky that was tried to be recaptured with Rocky 5, but really nobody else knows Rocky other than Stallone himself. So, I mean, John Avildsen's a good director, but really it should have been Stallone that should have recaptured that. And he succeeds with Rocky Balboa. My favorite musical score of the whole Rocky series. Not my favorite boxing matches, but just overall, the training montages are great. The boxing matches are great. The villain, not even really a villain, but the antagonistic force is really good. But mostly, this is just a great character study of how somebody who is a has-been is now like living a more normal life. I appreciate that this movie is pretty somber because Rocky's wife, Adrian, who's been here since day one through Rocky 1 and 5, or 1 through 5, is now dead. I'm sure that did put off a lot of people going into this movie. And at first you might think, "Oh wow, she's dead. What? Why?" I think it's handled pretty well, and it really goes to show that Rocky is not just a dumb meat-headed boxer. He actually does have some uh he's got some sentience, and he as has some emotional range. And overall, I definitely think this is the most emotional Rocky film, because not only is it that, it's another movie where a guy's trying to reconnect with his son, which I can now appreciate a bit more because I actually have a son now. And even though Sage Stallone was still alive at the time, I think Milo, can't remember his last name, does a really good job as Rocky Jr. Overall, Rocky Balboa is a really, really special movie. This is still my favorite Rocky film, and the original Rocky is still my least favorite. But this is kind of like a perfected version of what the original Rocky was doing. It's also a good inverse of the original Rocky, too. And it's also one of the absolute greatest motivational movies I've ever seen. Like if you really want something that's a good pick-me-up for your spirit and your mental state, watch Rocky Balboa. It's a very, very inspiring film. And as I've said, I think it's Sylvester Stallone's best movie. Performance-wise, directing-wise, writing-wise, and just overall. But it's not my absolute favorite, but I do think it's his best. Oh, fuck. I fucked up on this. Oh, shit. I gotta do something real quick. Damn, I needed editing software, so hang on. One. Okay. Oops. So actually, maybe I can fix this. Okay, yeah, there's an easy fix. Sorry about that, guys. I just realized I numbered some of my movies wrong. Okay, so excuse me. This will be number 43. We have a trilogy of Steven Seagal movies. At number 43, we have Exit Wounds. Okay, so there is a lot of controversy surrounding Steven Seagal. He's kind of an asshole. He's kind of a prima donna. He's kind of a horn dog. And he's just overall kind of he's got some ego problems. But in the 80s and 90s, Steven Seagal was a pretty badass action hero. And there's no denying that he definitely does have some kick-ass movies in his repertoire. So these trilogy of Steven Seagal movies are my three favorites. Exit Wounds is my favorite of his kind of more current filmography, like in his 2000s stuff. There's another one, Belly of the Beast, that's also pretty good, but this one has a good theatrical quality to it. It's got a pretty decent cast. I'm not really a fan of his music, but DMX was pretty badass in this movie. I also can't remember this guy's name too, but he's a really funny guy. He um Tom Arnold also is in this movie from True Lies, is also pretty good in this movie. I can't remember this guy's name though. He was the black friend in Kangaroo Jack. Um he's got like a really high-pitched voice. But he's really funny in this movie. And Michael Jai White, who plays one of the movie's main villains, it leads into a pretty good corrupt cop twist because he came off as such a really good guy, but you realize, oh, he's totally a piece of shit drug kingpin. And Stallone, or not Stallone, sorry, Seagal sort of gives a half wooden performance in this movie, but he's pretty badass in this movie. He's also kind of funny. He's got some really funny scenes. And some really good fight scenes, of course. The music to this movie is really good. It's really funny. The action scenes are really good. Just overall, I really dig Exit Wounds. I think this is one of Steven Seagal's most underrated movies. At number 42 is Hard to Kill, Steven Seagal's second movie, and is also a pretty damn badass one. It's a good, I keep forgetting this term, but it's a good, like, reclaiming glory and also a good clearing your name movie. Not a whole lot to say, but Steven Seagal is, of course, plays a really badass cop. This got some really good fight scenes, a good musical score, some good training montages, because Seagal goes into a coma in this movie, and he's in a coma for 7 years, and his recovery process is really inspiring. Like watching him build back his physique, get his martial arts training back, and just recover from 7 years in a coma is really inspiring and fun to watch. Some good kills, some great action scenes. Just overall, Hard to Kill is really entertaining. But not as much as my favorite Steven Seagal movie. At number 41 is Out for Justice. This is probably, of Steven Seagal's 80s and 90s filmography, this is probably his grittiest film. It's very violent. It's very nasty and dirty. It's a bit mean-spirited because Steven Seagal's character, he's very angry for like 95% of this movie. He's very just no nonsense and very angry and very badass in this movie. Also has a very despicable villain in Richie. Anybody see Richie? Anybody know why Richie did Bobby Lupo? There's just always been something about Out for Justice that's really resonated with me. Like, yeah, it's mean-spirited, but it's also very satisfying because it's ultimately a revenge movie about a guy getting revenge for some guy killing his best friend. And that's, of course, is Seagal. And it's just Seagal going on a bit of a rampage, tearing apart the Italian mafia and tearing apart Brooklyn's scumbag underlife. And it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's very satisfying when Richie gets killed by Seagal. Coming in at number 40 is Bad Boys 1, 2, and 3. Our first, I think, triple tie, or no, first one since Lord of the Rings to be in this. Yeah. Hang on one sec. Screaming kids. Okay. Yeah, number 40 is the Bad Boys Trilogy. I went into these movies. The first one I saw was Bad Boys 2. I just so happened to be watching a movie or like get caught up watching a movie with my mom and stepdad on a whim. And it was the scene when Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are breaking into the funeral home and all the shenanigans that goes on inside the morgue with Smith and Lawrence. Oh man, it's funny. Mike, have some dignity. I ain't doing nothing. Cover her titties up. Like what am I gonna do with these big ass dead titties? But you're looking though. There's something's wrong with your brain. Let's cover the titties. God damn. That's really aside from the action and the gore, that's the biggest thing that I take away from the Bad Boys movies. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence make such a good duo. They play off of each other so well. Their chemistry is so strong, and how they could just go back and forth, back and forth. They're kind of like, not to be derogatory, they're kind of like Black Abbott and Costello, with Will Smith being Abbott and Martin Lawrence being Costello. They're just so funny watching these two. 1 minute they're bonding really strongly and they're acting like the best of best friends, and you go from that, and then the next minute they're just like at each other's throats, throwing swear words back and forth, just saying, "I'm gonna beat your fucking ass, bitch." It's funny. It's funnier than shit. The first movie is probably the most tame, but that's not a bad thing. There's some good gore. There's some really good action scenes. A phenomenal music score. Like, it's a good start. Kind of like with the Lethal Weapon movies. The first Bad Boys is a very good start. Bad Boys 2 takes everything that was great about the first Bad Boys and cranks it up to 99. Lots more explosions, lots more blood and gore. Like, this movie's pretty gnarly. Lots more swearing. Lots more shootouts and gunplay. Bad Boys 2 is just a fucking entertaining, kick-ass action movie. And both the first two Bad Boys movies are definitely Michael Bay's best movies. And they're probably my favorite of his films, too. Bad Boys 3, well, yes, in my opinion, it was not worth waiting 17 years. Still, it's a very, very good return to form. It doesn't feel like there's 17 years lost. Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are having just as much fun, just playing off of each other, being Abbott and Costello, but modern day. Their chemistry is still really strong. They work together really good as a team. This movie also is pretty violent and gory. Not quite as much as 2, but definitely more than the first movie. But there's also a bit more emotional bits to this film as well. It's got some good twists that I didn't see coming, like the killing of Captain Howard. I didn't see his death coming at all. I thought he would still be around, but no, he's killed about an hour into the movie. I was like, oh, damn, I didn't see that coming. Fuck. Okay, so this movie's actually surprising me. Yeah, the Bad Boys Trilogy, I fucking adore these movies. I do think the second one is my favorite because I think that's just the one I have the most connection to. But yeah, the Bad Boys movies are pretty damn fucking awesome. At number 39, we have The Rundown. This is my favorite of all of the action movies that The Rock has done. A really, really good cast in this as well. We got Rosario Dawson, Sean William Scott doing one of his earliest action movies, I believe. And of course, we have the great Christopher Walken playing another villain in this movie and just doing a fantastic job. Oh, wow. That's my attempted Christopher Walken impression. You be the judge yourself how good it was. But Lord Hellhound, if you see this, you know what I'm referring to. Not that much to say about The Rundown. This is another movie introduced to me by my mom and stepdad. Like right after we saw the remake of Walking Tall, they showed me this. And this one just blew me out of the water. Again, it's really funny. It's got some really good explosions and really good fight scenes. And just in general, the character of, I can't remember his name, but the cows on the ground. That guy, he's really funny. Of course, Sean William Scott is also really funny in this too. I think he did this right after American Wedding. So he's just like at the top of the world in this movie. But the final like third act when The Rock's character is just going on a rampage, tearing Christopher Walken's men apart and tearing his town apart. It's so awesome and so entertaining. Yeah, The Rundown is fucking epic. A very big, explosive, bombastic movie, in my opinion. It's just great. At number 38, we have Rambo 4 and 5. Rambo and Rambo Last Blood. These are my two favorite Sylvester Stallone movies, is the last two Rambo flicks. My mom really did not want me to watch Rambo 4 for a long, long time. Like I'd even seen Bad Boys 2 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 before she let me watch Rambo 2008. Probably for good reason, but I didn't care because I fucking loved this movie. Yeah, we all know it's a very, very, very violent, it's a very violent, very gritty, very mean-spirited, very visceral war movie. And I fucking love it. I love how violent this movie is. I love how mean-spirited this movie is. I love how angry this movie is. Like, if you're just kind of in a bad mood, but you want to vicariously watch a total badass just tear people to pieces, this is a very cathartic film for somebody in that state of mind to watch because, man, is Rambo just a total beast in this movie. He's very angry. He's very brutal. He's very violent, and it's fucking great. And as for Rambo Last Blood, I didn't expect this movie to exist. I do still have one minor grievance with it, aside from the two cons that I have with this, is that, damn it, I wish we could see that fucking extended cut. Same with the original Rambo. There's too much missing footage. Rambo 5 is not nearly as bad. Oh, well. But similar to Rambo 5, if this is like, if you just like, if you just want to watch a movie that's like very violent and visceral and angry, Rambo 4 and 5 will absolutely wet your whistle because, man, oh man, are these movies violent. That's really the biggest thing I take away from these two. They're violent, they're bloody, they're awesome, they're kick ass, they're fucked up, but they're entertaining as shit. watching Rambo tear people apart with knives and guns and traps is absolutely spectacular. Rambo, like in Rambo 4, watching Rambo gun down all of these motherfuckers with this giant 50 caliber machine gun is so goddamn fun. And watching Rambo in Rambo Last Blood tear apart all these cartel members with his knives, traps, and guns is very entertaining. He goes full on Jason Voorhees, pretty much, to quote Shawnee Boy. It's so good. I would like to see at least one more Rambo movie before Stallone either retires or dies. I've always been more Team Rambo over Team Rocky, so I hope we can see at least one more before Stallone no longer can do movies. But yeah, I love Rambo 4 and 5. And hang on one second. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, cool. Moving on to number 37, we have Lethal Weapon 1, 2, and 3. Another tie. I really can't choose between these three movies. Lethal Weapon is a classic 80s buddy cop action movie. It's very 80s. It's got fucking Gary Busey playing a villain. How more 80s can you get? But of course, we have Mel Gibson kicking ass as Martin Riggs, rocking that 80s mullet. We got Danny Glover playing Murtaugh, who's just one great old man joke after another. And of course, a word from our sponsor. Yeah, overall it's just it may be kind of a typical buddy cop 80s action movie, but it's the best of that genre. The chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover is just on point. And of course, Richard Donner is a very, very good director. And he injects a lot of his style and flair. Like, this definitely feels like a Richard Donner movie, and that's great. Richard Donner, I think, is a pretty damn underrated director. Taking that formula and that chemistry and that style, moving into Lethal Weapon 2, it just cranks it up to 99. Everything that was great about Lethal Weapon is cranked up to 99 in Lethal Weapon 2. A good plot twist with the villains of this movie who, like, even if this twist wasn't a thing, they would still be strong villains. But revealing that the villains are actually responsible for the death of Martin Riggs' wife kind of does come out of nowhere, but in a good way. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to see that. More great action scenes, more great chemistry. The introduction of Joe Pesci playing Leo Getz. He's funny. He's really fucking funny. Okay. They fuck you at the drive-thru, okay? They fuck you at the drive-thru. They know you're going to be miles away before they realize they fucked up, so that's how that they fuck you. Okay. Oh, man, he's funny. You'd think at first that he would clash with Riggs and Murtaugh, but he really doesn't. He just feels like another addition to that comedy, or that type of comedy, and he's great. And then we take that and move into Lethal Weapon 3, which is my favorite of the series. You take that and you introduce a really underrated aspect in police procedural stuff, them dealing with crooked cops. So that kind of like, it kind of is a spin on what I believe is a really good, or what is like the best villain trope. Like I've said before, who is the greatest villain to a hero if not an evil version of itself. Venom to Spider-Man, Red Hulk to Hulk, Mechagodzilla to Godzilla, crooked cops to good cops. Best villain in my opinion. Yeah, the Lethal Weapon movies, this is like the epitome of 80s action. Well, almost. It's in that group. Like this is definitely of 4 or 5 movies, the first 2 at least are the epitome, part of that epitome of 80s action movies. They're great. At number 36 is Total Recall. Total Recall. I really wish I could have seen this at a much younger age. Okay, I do have it right. I gotta fix this later. Anyway, so yeah, Total Recall. I'm actually gonna rectify a statement that I've said for a while. I no longer do think that Total Recall is Paul Verhoeven's best movie, but it's really tied with another one as his second best. More on that later. Total Recall, though, is such a kick-ass action movie. It's also a kick-ass sci-fi movie as well. It's got a bit more of a believable sci-fi setting with interplanetary travel and such, and a pretty realistic depiction of Mars, in my opinion, even though it wouldn't take this fast for Mars to regain an atmosphere. It wouldn't be like the span of a couple minutes. It would probably take a few years for that really to happen, but whatever. That severely unscientifically accurate thing aside, it's a movie. Who cares? Great action scenes. There's none of that Paul Verhoeven satire here. This is just like a much more straightforward, just kick-ass action movie. But it's got a very cerebral plot that keeps you guessing. I'm actually not really a big fan of movies where their plots keep you guessing because that kind of just gets a bit draining. But this movie does it very well, where as soon as you just think that the plot is just settling in what you think it's going to be doing for the rest of the movie, there's another twist that comes around and changes everything around. And right as you get used to that, there's another one that comes around. And it is a good example of a movie that, like, your interpretation is up to you. Like, is Arnold Douglas Quaid or is he Hauser at the end of this movie? Is he more Douglas Quaid or is he more Hauser? It is up to, or is it Hauser, but he has a change of heart and just acts more like Douglas Quaid? Which one is it? It's totally up to you. I just more so go with what it's like what Arnold says. I am Quaid. Yeah, at the end of this movie, I do think Arnold is ultimately Douglas Quaid, but that's the beauty of it. It's up to you. And not really any other director could have done something like this at the time other than, well, John Carpenter did it for The Thing, but in terms of like an action movie, no other director could have done it other than good old Paul Verhoeven. But yeah, Total Recall is fucking awesome. At number 35, we have Robocop. 1 and 2 tied. I really cannot choose between the two. Though, in hindsight, Robocop 2 has quite a few flaws. Still, though, it's got a lot of really good stuff going for it. Like, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. But talking about Robocop, this is tied with Total Recall as Paul Verhoeven's second best movie. And RoboCop probably, oh God, see, I really don't know. I do think Starship Troopers is Paul Verhoeven's best movie. Just getting that out of the way right now. I don't think that's on my favorite movies list. No, it's not. It should have been, but whatever. Hold on one sec. Just gonna poke fun at Shiny Boy. Yeah, okay, so Robocop. I really don't know. It's so hard to choose between Total Recall and Robocop as my favorite of actually. No, I'm just gonna say it. Robocop is my favorite Paul Verhoeven film. I still say that. Well, I already said this, but yeah, I still say Starship Troopers. I think is his best movie. That's probably the biggest budget that he's ever worked with in his entire career. But RoboCop is so fucking awesome. A great production design, great for the most part special effects, phenomenal music. RoboCop himself is a fucking badass motherfucker. Great action scenes, great gore, great grit, great villains. RoboCop is just a kick-ass fucking flick. RoboCop 2 takes all of the good elements of RoboCop and brings them over and cranks them up to 99 once again. A much larger budget, more refined special effects, a lot more special effects, even more than the first movie. It's not quite as bloody, maybe like minutely not quite as bloody, but it still is very violent. Great action scenes, shitty music, unfortunately, and a fantastic antagonistic robot in the form of Robo-Kane. The RoboCop versus Robo-Kane stuff in this movie is absolutely phenomenal, and Kane himself makes for a really, really good villain. RoboCop and RoboCop 2 are so goddamn kick-assly awesome. And coming in at number 34, the last action movie, like pure action. And this movie is the number one epitome of 80s action movies. Shawnee Boy, this one's for you. My number 34 is Commando. Arnold's most fun movie. Not quite his best, it's one of them, but it's his most fun. Definitely a movie that you can just throw on. Either do something, but just have it on for background noise, or just sit down anytime and any day and just watch it and have fun. It is just a fun movie. It's violent, it's gory, it's very explosive, it's very bombastic, it's very entertaining. It's just a kick-ass fucking movie. God damn is Commando awesome. In my opinion, this is the ultimate epitome of 80s action movie. Big, giant slab of meat going around effortlessly gunning down legions of motherfuckers with big guns. It is so awesome. Commando kicks ass. Hang on. Ooh. Oh, that felt good. At number I'm confused. Okay. Sorry, guys. I keep getting confused. There's a lot of movies here to talk about. At number 33, we are now getting into superhero movies. We're going to be here for a little bit, too. At number 33 is another tie. Uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Yeah, these are probably my two favorite Ninja Turtles movies. And I think this is Ninja Turtles at its very best. I'll admit I'm not really a big fan of the cartoon show, so the fact that these take influence from the original comics is right up my alley. Um, the first Ninja Turtles movie, it's just I do think it's a bit prototypey. It kind of is prototypey, but a lot of the great seeds that would be sprouted upon in part two are planted here. The chemistry between the turtles is, of course, very good. Even though this doesn't take any influence from the cartoon, the brotherly, goofy, fun chemistry from the cartoon here is still very strong. The turtles all work together very well. They act as a unit and as a family together very well. And of course, when it just comes to kicking the foot's ass, it's a lot of fun. The prototypiness mainly comes in the suits and the effects. The suits are good, but there are lots of times where you could just tell that they hadn't really ironed out the kinks with the turtle suits in this movie. Like you can, it's pretty obvious that the mouths are just puppets, and they just don't move all that well sometimes. And some of the suitimation is a little stiff, and some of the puppetry, like with Splinter, is a little stiff, but still, you can tell that the filmmakers were really, really trying. And though, of course, the music is also great. Shredder is a very intimidating villain in this movie. Andrew, how have you not seen Commando? Watch the director's cut. TMNT 2, Secret of the Ooze. This was the first one that I ever watched, so I have some nostalgia more so with that movie in hand. But this, like with a lot of number two sequels, this takes everything that was good about the first Ninja Turtles movie, irons out the suitimation flaws and the puppet flaws. It injects more humor and takes out some of the darkness from the first film, but it just makes it more fun and entertaining. Ninja Turtles 2 is 90s as fuck, Vanilla Ice. But it's fun and it makes you like reminisce on the 90s, the early 90s. Um, Lots more action too, lots more characters to choose from. It is a lot funnier. I think it's a little longer too. I just think it's overall a better movie. But still, the first two Ninja Turtles movies are both fucking fantastic. I love the shit out of both of them. They're so fun. At number 32 is yet another tie, Hellboy 2004 and Hellboy 2019. Now, the Hellboy movies, I remember when the first one was coming out, I really didn't really care. It looked too strange. It looked too weird and too unorthodox for a movie that I would have liked. But on a whim, I just gave it a chance when I was at a guy who was babysitting me. Who was babysitting me at the time, and he put it on, and I was like, oh wow, this actually is pretty good. And then I watched it years later, and I'm like, oh damn, this movie's fucking great. Amazing special effects. It's Guillermo del Toro. Come on now, he's always gonna nail it when it comes to effects. Great monster designs. Hellboy. Oh my God, does Ron Perlman do such a great job as Hellboy? Perfect casting choice. He's got the gruff exterior. He's got that voice. He's perfect as Hellboy. Um, Hellboy 2019. Such a shame. Such a damn shame that this movie bombed. And it's such a shame that it had such a troubled production, because I think Hellboy 2019 is a very, very, very underrated movie. The gore and the R rating is awesome. That was really the biggest thing that intrigued me about Hellboy 2019, is that when I heard that it was going to be rated R, that got me like, ooh, okay, I might actually give this a chance. And then when I watched the movie's Red Band trailer, like, for those who don't know, a Red Band trailer is a trailer for a movie that shows all of the gore. I watched that and I was like, I want. And the movie is so damn fun. It's a lot more tongue in cheek, and it's a lot more self aware and way more over the top when it comes to the gore. But man, is Hellboy 2019 such a fun flick. It should have gotten a sequel. Why did it have to bomb? It's such a shame it flopped. And it's such a shame that people shit all over this movie. It has some problems, sure, but I think the positive does outweigh the negative. Mostly why I love it so much, though, it is the R rating. Because, man, is Hellboy 2019 a violent flick. I love it, though. Coming in at number 31 is Joker 2019. A very controversial, very unorthodox, and very surprising overall movie. I've said this before, I'm very anti-Batman. And I'm especially anti-Joker. But damn, did this movie throw me for a loop. Whenever I see like a snippet of a clip, or like I see the trailer for this movie, it just makes me want to go back and rewatch this flick. It's just so damn good. Joaquin Phoenix is captivating as all living shit as the Joker. Robert De Niro is a great addition to this movie's cast. Fantastic direction by Todd Phillips. I think that's his name. And a fantastic musical score. The bathroom dance music is so awesome. I've said this before. I was really hoping that this movie would win an Oscar or an Academy Award for Joaquin Phoenix's performance and for the music. And it won both. So that made me very happy. And I'm very happy that this ended up becoming the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. It is just it's very, what's the word? Unorthodox. And it's a strange film. And especially for me, I'm anti-Joker and anti-Batman, but I will admit when something comes along that impresses me. So, yeah, this movie really impressed me. Joker is a very unique film. At number 30, we have the 2004 Catwoman movie. Yes, this is a terrible movie. It's poorly made, poorly written, poorly directed, poorly edited. It's got poor effects. It's just a very poor movie. But God, is it an entertaining mess. This, to me, is the epitome of so bad it's good. It's like laughable how much this movie is just poorly made. Like, you watch it, like, that's not right. That's edited poorly. That dialogue is terrible. The acting is atrocious. The effects are terrible. This what? This is bad. This is bad. What the fuck is this? But it's hilarious watching this movie at how terrible it is. For one thing, it's a female version of The Crow, straight up. It wants to be connected to the Tim Burton, like maybe like another Batman film, but it also doesn't. It's got really bad acting, very poor characters, horrendous CGI. Uh, it's just bad, but it's entertaining as fuck. How bad it is. I know there's a lot of haters of Catwoman 2004 out there, but I love it. I agree. It's a bad movie, but fuck me if it's not entertaining as hell. And I'll admit, Halle Berry does do a great job as Catwoman in this film. Sorry, my eye itches. At number 29, we have Venom 2018. Not going to say too much about this. I say enough about it in my top 20 favorite superhero films video. This was the movie that brought me and Meadow together. I acknowledge now that it does have some problems, but I still love it. A great performance by Tom Hardy, a very good adaptation of the Life Foundation arc in Venom comics. Phenomenal special effects on Venom, a great chemistry between Venom and Tom Hardy, even though he plays both characters, but still. Just overall, Venom is a very underrated gem, in my opinion. I don't get the haters. I really don't. Sure, it should have been R-rated. Same for its sequel. But still, it does the best that it can with the limits that it's got. And overall, it's just a very entertaining movie. Fuck all you haters. Venom is awesome. At number 28, this is my favorite Jim Carrey movie. Jim Carrey's The Mask. Fuck me. The Mask is awesome. It's funny. It's entertaining. It's colorful. It's kind of subversive. It's a film noir, gangster, over the top, cartoony superhero movie. And it's awesome. Jim Carrey is at the top of the world in this movie. He's really funny. He's very likable. He's very relatable. The effects are great. Yeah, there's early 90s CG in this, but I think that adds to this movie's benefit because it's supposed to look cartoony, because the Mask is a very cartoony character. That adds to the appeal, and that adds to the effect. Overall, this is just I think I should review this at some point. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's got great music, it's got great characters and great performances. Jim Carrey's The Mask is fucking awesome. My favorite Jim Carrey movie, hands down. I do think this is Jim Carrey's best film. Yeah, The Mask is fucking awesome. Give us a sequel, a proper sequel. There's supposed to be The Mask 2, but that got canned in favor of Son of Mask. You know, that's kind of another so bad it's good movie, but still, give us a proper sequel or give us an adaptation of the original Mask comics. Man, that would give Freddy Krueger a run for his money. Coming in at number 27 is The Suicide Squad. I do prefer this over Suicide Squad 2016. I do think this is a better movie, mostly because there's really none of the studio versus director bullshit. Warner Brothers was all hands on deck with James Gunn's want and desire with this movie, and it paid off. It's a gleefully violent, entertainingly fucked up kick-ass action / superhero flick. The R rating is awesome. The violence is great. The kills are great. The characters are great. Stallone does a great job as King Shark. Bird. Hand. Book read. So smart, me. Num num. Monsters. Num num. He's my favorite. He's the Groot of this movie. Because, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, the Suicide Squad is fucking awesome. It's very over the top. It feels like a modern day 80s action movie, which had this movie been made in the 80s, it would have been such a giant hit. But yeah, I love the Suicide Squad. And finally, at number 26, another tie. Blade 1 and 2. I've again talked about these in my top 20 favorite superhero films. Not going to repeat myself too much. There's some of my favorites, of course, of all time. Superhero and overall film in general. Some dated, for both movies, CGI effects aside, great practical effects, mean, nasty vampires, phenomenal fight scenes and martial arts choreography, great music for both movies. Just overall, Blade 1 and Blade 2. Also, of course, Wesley Snipes' best movies, in my opinion. But yeah, these movies are absolutely fucking awesome, in my opinion. Kick-ass superhero flicks and kick-ass movies overall. Alrighty. So that'll be it for this part, but tune in very soon as I finish this series. And at the end of the next part, I'm going to have a special announcement. So tune in just a little bit, and I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. I'll see you there.